Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Women's Ministry presentation on this Saturday evening. It is a pleasure to have you joining us this evening, and we are Life Worship Center Church of God of Prophecy. Our pastor is Bishop Owen Z. Martin, co-pastor Paula Lee Martin, and our associate pastor Michelle Allen. This women's ministry is delighted to have our focus on diabetes awareness. And we have invited an ambassador on diabetes awareness to be with us all the way from England this evening. It is our delight to welcome Mr. Tony Kelly, British born and raised in Jamaica. He returned to England in 79, living in Birmingham with his family. He was a teacher, a Michael Teachers College graduate, and he taught English and religious education in Kingston High Schools. Tony worked all over for nearly 8 years. From June 2012, he was a diabetes UK community champion, devoting his time and educating communities in Britain and further afield. And that further afield also include us. This evening is here with us. He talks a lot about diabetes. In his case, he has a hereditary condition, medical condition, and he's proud to have his diabetes controlled, which is type 2 diabetes, I must say, with physical activity and diet since his diagnosis 18 years ago. And he has never taken medication, thus proving it can be done with the right mindset, discipline, and motivation. Tony is in demand for radio, television, webinar all over. He has presentations. It was on the radio that I heard him doing his excellent presentation and thought that we could invite him over to share with us and enlighten us on diabetes and how we can control it. He models pro-social modeling is Tony's motto. As without fail, he has the winter flu vaccination every year, and he has had all his COVID-19 vaccinations. He is a multifaceted, award-winning presenter. He has awards from all over. From 2015, he has a Diabetes UK Regional Campaigning and Raising Awareness Award, many awards, multifaceted. And in 2022, he has the Black Honors Award, which is a lifetime achievement for raising awareness of diabetes. We could not have a better person to present to us, son of the soil in Jamaica, now residing in the UK, and a diabetes ambassador he surely is. Help me welcome this evening, Mr. Tony Kelly.
Thank you very much, Paulette, for that lovely introduction. May I first of all start by thanking you, Paulette, for you were listening to at the Tenny Miller live show in Florida. And that's where you would have heard me. And then you got in touch with me because I left my details, Tony Kelly Diabetes at hotmail.com, on that radio interview. And you did the honorable thing and getting in touch with me. So that's very nice. So thanks to you. And also to Nicole, who has given a lot of support, because I'm the world's biggest technophobe. I don't do technology, I'm afraid. So Nicole, big up yourself for actually being able to help and assist me in this process. It's now nearly midnight here. And thanks for all of those who have decided to come in onto this webinar, which I'm going to do. Before COVID-19, I used to do these in person, face to face, all over the place. But now with the restrictions, although they were lifting them now, so I'm now able to do them. But when I do them like in the States and Canada and other places, Africa, of course, I have to do them online. So here we go. It's I work as a volunteer for the Birmingham and Solihull Clinical Commissioning Group. It's a National Health Service Clinical Commissioning Group. And I should have mentioned, I don't know if for your benefit of those who might not be here, Nicole and Paulette, are you recording it? Because I don't mind it being recorded, you know.
Yes.
Yes, by all means, yes. So I work as a volunteer for this organization. It's part of the National Health Service, Birmingham and Solihull Clinical Commissioning Group. And it's going to change its name soon to ICS, yet another acronym we're going to have to learn. ICS, Integrated Care System, as of June, July. Okay? So that's me there, it mentioning I'm a diabetes strategic patient partner, which is a mouthful. But when I go to other places, I just say, well, I'm a diabetes ambassador or advocate. And you see the lots of fresh fruits and vegetables and products of the Caribbean. There's sweet potato and yam and sugarcane, which we'll talk about in a while. Won't bother with any of those things because I'm not in an outdoor setting or a setting with people. But when I do those things, I then mention all of those. So as was said by Paulette, I am not a healthcare professional. We need to understand that loud and clear. So please, at the end, when you come to question and answers, don't ask me questions about your gout, your lumbago, your arthritis, your lupus or anything like that, because I'm just going to refer you back to your doctor, or as we would say here in Britain, your GP. But I've had diabetes for 18 years, Christmas gone, 18 years, and I've never taken any medication whatsoever for this medical condition. That's me as a cheeky little boy, because I was born in Britain and my parents sent me off to the land of their birth, Jamaica, at an early age while they remained here. So I grew up in Whitehall, St. Thomas, Jamaica. And as a child growing up, noticed relatives of mine, no word of a lie, starting from the head, some had strokes, some had blindness, they went blind, some had heart attacks. Other relatives of mine had to go onto the kidney dialysis machine in Kingston, travel from the country to go into Kingston to go on the kidney dialysis machine to have their kidneys filtered out because the kidneys weren't working properly. Some also had lower limb amputations, or what we in Jamaica would say, chop off toes and chop off feet. And finally, some died prematurely, or again, what we would say in Jamaica, gone too soon. So relatives of mine in their 40s, 50s, 60s, dying well before their time. As an inquisitive, or what we would say nosy child in Jamaica, age 8, 9, 10, 11, I would ask, what is wrong with all these relatives of mine? And all I was told is, as most of you will know, they have a touch of sugar. So diabetes was referred to back in my days in the 60s and 70s as, oh, granny, uncle, so-and-so has a touch of sugar. So they minimized and trivialized and downplayed this condition by calling it a touch of sugar. Okay, I then went on to Micro Teachers College, trained, and then came back to England. The year I came back to England was 1979. So this is my 43rd year that I've been back in England, living in Birmingham. I'm married to my sweetheart, who we used to teach at the same school in Jamaica, 1980, and she joined me, and we have one daughter. Then, 18 years ago, she noticed the 4 key symptoms. I was displaying the 4 key symptoms that I might have type 2 diabetes. They are called or referred to as the 4 T's. T for tired, T for toilet, T for thirsty, and T for thinner. Now, some men are probably listening on to this interview, and some of you women have partners in your life, male partners. I was in denial, like the ostrich, burying my head in the sand. Most men, not all, but most men do not do doctors. Most men are not in touch with their feelings. Most men are not in touch with their emotions. I was one of those men because I was getting up, ladies and gentlemen, up to 4 times during the night to go to the toilet or the restroom or the bathroom to use it. So that meant tired, toilet, thirsty, thinner. My wife kept nagging me, and she's heard me speak so many times, and she says, yes, I was nagging you, because no human being is supposed to be getting up 4 times a night to go to the loo or toilet. Something's wrong with you, something's wrong with you. But I was in denial. Like the ostrich, the largest bird on the planet, at the first sign of danger, the proverbial ostrich buries its head in the sand, hoping the problem will go away. Ladies and gentlemen, the problem does not go away. It exacerbates or gets worse. Eventually, I got a vial, a small sample of urine early morning before breakfast in a vial, took it down to the doctor's surgery, and the doctor looked on the computer, the records, and she said, "You're Mr. Kelly?" I said, "Yes." and your first name is Anthony, everybody calls you Tony, do you realize up to this point, you have not been down to this surgery in the last 7 or 8 years? This is what I'm telling you about men not going to doctors. And I held my head down in shame. She put the dipstick in the urine and put it to the light, and it came out whatever color. And she said, there is glucose or sugar. They are the same thing, glucose or sugar, in your urine, and there's supposed to be none. But for a definitive answer, I'm going to take a sample of your blood, send it off to the lab, and it will determine where you definitely have diabetes. And it came back as an early Christmas present 18 years ago that I have type 2 diabetes. Later on, you'll explain, and I'll explain to you the difference between type 1 and type 2. But as by now, you probably realize that I can chat for Britain and Jamaica and everywhere else. So I was working as an equality and diversity middle manager, and I was invited to a place called Wolverhampton, which is 9 miles from Birmingham, because I wanted somebody to come and speak. This is just 10 years ago now, about how they manage and control their diabetes. And everybody said, there's a guy in Birmingham who does it so well. Because I wasn't afraid to tell people I had diabetes. Some people said, why are you telling everybody you have it? I said, well, it's no big deal. So I went to Wolverhampton and spoke for 10 minutes, passionately from my heart, without any notes. And they said, come over to Macedonia and help us. You've got the gift of the gab. You can chat, you're articulate. You'll be able to go into communities and explain to people what diabetes is and how you manage to control it so long. At that time, it was about 8 years. And now, of course, it's 18 years without medication. So I start off by saying, when I was growing up in Jamaica, in Whitehall, St. Thomas, as mentioned before, every time I headed to the kitchen to watch and see them cooking, my grandmother would run me away. Go away. It's on the girl picnic, and you know what I understand by girl picnic. Only girls must be in the kitchen. Boys must not be in the kitchen. So I never, ladies and gentlemen, learned to cook. Couldn't even boil an egg. And that happened right through my life until in 2009, my daughter said, we have to come home. She has to come home, or my wife has to come home and cook, and you just sit down there and doing nothing and so on. And she gave me as a Christmas present that year, 2008, 15 Caribbean cookery lessons over at a place called Sutton Coldfield, Boldmere College. And I went, and I've now discovered, or they discovered, I'm a latent cook, because I'm the best cook, and they won't mind me saying that, within the household. I have learned to cook, and I'm saying loud and clear, men and young people, boys and girls, we must teach them the rudiments of cooking. In the days gone by back in Jamaica, it was called home economics. And now suddenly everybody not bothering to do that anymore and going to the fast food and the takeaway and so on. So I learned to cook, which is very important in this grand scheme of things. I move on to talk about the National Health Service. Why? In 1939 to 1945, there was the Second World War. And at the end of the Second World War in 1945, Britain sent representatives to the Caribbean, to Africa, and to Asia to recruit people to come and rebuild the country. My aunt in the middle came from Bath, St. Thomas, Jamaica in 1952 to train as a nurse in the National Health Service. On the left, you see one black person on the left. That happens to be my mother, who came in 1953 to also train as a nurse here in London. And then followed a third sister. So 3 sisters from one generation. She came in 1956. So I take great exception, ladies and gentlemen, when I do these presentations, I bring these people out, 3 relatives of mine, into the equation to show we need to change the narrative. Black people came from Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean, whether they were conductors, whether they were street cleaners, whether they were nurses, whether they were clippies, whether they were factory workers, they helped to build back Britain after the war. And here are 3 sisters from one family who came into the National Health Service. And I make sure, I make no bones about it, making sure to big them up, their contribution. So moving swiftly on, you will hear the term hard to reach community quite a lot. If you look it up online, on Google, on the internet, you will see it. For me, it's insensitive, it's offensive, it's patronizing and condescending. And for me, borders on racism. Ask yourself the question. When I hear that at events I go to, big events with the professors and the consultants and the doctors, I stand up and I say, excuse me, who are these hard to reach communities? And this is their answer. The Africans, the Caribbeans, the Asians, the white working class, or on the whole, Black people. And then I just have my ready-made answer. I say, excuse me, are they in the Himalayas, in the jungle, in the deep blue sea, on a celestial body like the moon or Jupiter or Mars? Please don't be patronizing and condescending and refer to people as hard to reach. You need to, I say to them, get from behind your laptop, get from out of your ivory tower, and the church needs to do that as well. Go and engage in communities. I do on average, ladies and gentlemen, 150 community events per year on this topic of health and well-being. I knock on gurdwaras, mosques, churches, temples, residential homes, and Tony Kelly does not take no for an answer. And I'm saying the same thing. When Jesus was here on earth, he wasn't in the temples. He was out there on the beaches and in the villages and wherever, and he was on the beach trying to get fishers. I will make you fishers of men. We too must do that. And not just be say, oh, we have to be in a church or a building in order to reach out to people. So I don't subscribe to that. And when you hear it being said, you need to challenge it. Because what I'm saying loud and clear is we are historically excluded, is a better word than hard to reach. Historically neglected, historically ignored, marginalized, or underserved are all better terms to use than hard to reach. And I go on to say, if Muhammad cannot go to the mountain, then the mountain must go to Muhammad. And that's what I do. So I go to places where people are blind and people are deaf, sight and hearing impaired, people with learning difficulties, disabilities. And as I said, the African, Caribbean, and Asian people, traveling communities, white working class. I go and seek them out. And that's what we're saying. The same way you as Christians are wanting to bring people to Christ, that's where you go. The rumba, the place where they're playing the domino, the hairdressers, the pub, the club, the barber shop. That's what I do. And that's what I'm saying to other people. That's where we need to go and get people converted to our way of life, our Christian religion. I don't go to health clinics, medical centers, and hospitals, or a doctor's surgery. There's no point going to those places because the people at those places are already there for a purpose and a reason. So it's no point going there. I go to the other places that I mentioned earlier. Okay? And I mentioned that I do about 150 community engagements per year. Diabetes itself. There are 10 countries in the world where diabetes is rampant. These are the top 10 countries. And you notice there are 5 Asian countries in the top 10. China, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, and Bangladesh. Now, a lot of people said to me in this 10 years, June coming, that I've been doing this event, said to me, Tony, you know, I've never seen a fat Chinese man or fat Chinese woman. And I immediately say, if you have the idea in your brain or your cranium that it is only fat, overweight, or obese people who can develop diabetes, you need to get rid of that thought or that idea. People who are skinny, average, or going back to Jamaica, would have said mager, can also develop this medical condition. Now, I refer to it as a medical condition. Some people like to call it a non-communicable disease or an acute disease. In the training I was given, I was told it is a medical condition. So I'm saying people in China can get it just as well, India, what have you. So those are the top 10 countries, and those figures come from the International Diabetes Federation. That picture just basically shows all ethnic groups or races can develop diabetes. That's all that picture is saying. Now, this is something which you need to take on board worldwide. Again, from the International Diabetes Federation, the recent figures released in 2021, which is just last year, it is estimated that 537 million people have diabetes in 2021. That figure is projected to reach 643 by 2030. Remember, we're 2022 at the moment. And by 2045, it's going to even go further to 783 million people. Now, I want you to cast your mind back to the millennium. The millennium was 1999 going into 2000. So some people might say 2030 and 2045 is very far away. Just think when the millennium came in, and here we are now in 2022. So ladies and gentlemen, I'm saying to you loud and clear, it is not that far away. The diabetes issue is increasing, it's rising, it's getting worse. And at the bottom it says, there is one death every 8 seconds from diabetes complications. Every 8 seconds, one person dies from diabetes. I want you to just put that alongside the COVID-19 deaths. And I'm telling you, diabetes is way, way, way above what COVID-19, with all what we know that has done. And that's the issue. And last year alone, 2021, 6.7 million people aged between 20 and 79 died from diabetes-related causes. I cannot put it any clearer than that, okay? I don't have the stats for America. I don't have the stats for Jamaica, but they are alarming just as much as any other country in the world in terms of this medical condition, diabetes. I come home to Britain because I focus a lot on Britain. 5 million people in this country have diabetes, and it's rising. And on top of that, there are around 1 million people, and there might be someone listening to this conversation, who have type 2 diabetes and have never, ever been diagnosed. And the reason is they haven't been diagnosed, they haven't been to the doctors, they haven't been to the medical center, they haven't been to the hospital, they haven't been to the clinic to get a blood test done. So we reckon in Britain alone, there's 1 million. There'd be a lot more in America, and the same also in Jamaica. People are walking around like a ticking time bomb with this medical condition and are none the wiser that they have it. What I'm saying to you loud and clear is, just like how you have your motor vehicle and you make sure to get it, over here we call it MOT, Ministry of Transport, tested once a year so that the brakes work and the brake fluid and the this and the wheels are run properly. Your body, given to you by Jah, Jehovah, Allah, God, whoever you worship, your body is far more important to you than a piece of metal or a piece of junk, which is what your motor car is. So in the same way you go and get your car in for its servicing once a year, you are supposed to go, and men in particular must go and get their health checks done. Remember I said I was one of those men who never donned a doctor's medical practice, never went inside. But now I make sure I go yearly for my checkup. I am begging, beseeching, and pleading with you. Take your men folk. I know the women on the whole do it, but men are another kettle of fish altogether. So we got to get to them. That graph just shows you how from 1998, how much diabetes has doubled within Britain, from 1.4 in 1998 to nearly 4 million in 2018. And now we are 2022, which is why it's gone up to 5 million and rising, with another million who don't even know they have it because they haven't been diagnosed. This is why it's big. 90% of people with diabetes have type 2. Okay, that's the starting point. 8% of people with diabetes have type 1. About 2% of people, which brings it up to 100%, have rarer types of diabetes. And because I'm not medically qualified, I'm not a healthcare professional, I don't talk about those 2%. I concentrate on the 90% who have type 2. You might not know some of these places, but think of the borough. Think of Queens and Bronx and Brooklyn and Long Island and Staten Island and so on. In Britain here, we have wards, sort of similar like boroughs, wards. And the graphs showing the prevalence of diabetes in 2019 to 2020 are Aston, Nechells, Handsworth, if any of you have been to Britain and been to Birmingham in particular, Salt Lake, Stechford, these are areas which are called here, don't like the term, but it's used here, inner city, or another word for inner city is deprived areas. And I think in some places in the states, in New York, they call them the projects. A lot of these places, every second and third shop is a fast food or takeaway or what I call junk food. And I'm saying to people who keep going every day in, day out, to go buy fast food or takeaway or junk food. This is where I come into the issue of people need to go home and learn to cook so you know what you're putting in your food, as opposed to constantly going out there and buying all of this food, which then is a main contributing cause of diabetes in the long run. We need to stop the whole heap of fry-ups and the whole heap of carbohydrates and so on, which I'm going to come on to. So the same in America, and the same would be in Jamaica. We've got to eat healthily is my message here within this. We've got to change our diet. And I'll come on to the things that I have done in a while, which makes me so healthy without having to take any medication in 18 years. Diabetes is serious. It affects every part of the body. Now, that doesn't say, ladies and gentlemen, every 2 weeks. It doesn't say every 6 months. It doesn't say every quarter. It says every single week in Britain, diabetes leads to 500 premature deaths. 500 people die every week in this country from diabetes. I'm not talking about any other medical condition, okay? Every week, again, there are 176 lower limb amputations from this medical condition in Britain. And the diabetes hospital in Britain where more amputations take place happens to be in Birmingham, the Heartland Hospital, or sometimes referred to as the East Birmingham Hospital. Every week in Britain, again, there are 680 strokes related to this condition, diabetes. Every week in Britain, there are 550 heart attacks and almost 2,000 cases of heart failure related to this medical condition, diabetes. Diabetes is also the leading cause of preventable or avoidable sight loss in people of working age in the United Kingdom. And then at the bottom, someone is diagnosed with diabetes in Britain every 2 minutes. That's a very significant fact to home in on. And the same would apply in America and Canada and Jamaica. I don't know the figures here, but you can always look them up. It's the same. So this is why it's showing you how diabetes is big. It's also very expensive. Some of you might have won the lottery, whether in Jamaica or America, and won 10 million Jamaican dollars or 10 million American dollars. Ladies and gentlemen, that does not say 10 million. It says about 10 billion pounds is spent by the National Health Service on one condition, diabetes. There are some countries in the world that don't have that amount of money, 10 billion pounds, as their gross domestic product. And here we are in Britain spending that amount of money, which amounts to 1 million pounds every single hour, or 10% of the entire National Health Service budget. That's a lot of money to spend on this one condition, which people say, oh, it's just a mild condition. It's just a touch of sugar. Now, at this point, I'm going to play, and I hope it does, if we got the sound right, a 2-minute video.
There are 2 main types of diabetes, type 1 and type 2. They're different conditions, but they're both serious. There are some other rarer types of diabetes too. What all types of diabetes have in common is that they cause people to have too much glucose in their blood. But we all need some glucose. It's what gives us our energy. We get glucose when our bodies break down the carbohydrates that we eat or drink, and that glucose is released into our blood. We also need a hormone called insulin. It's made by our pancreas, and it's insulin that allows the glucose in our blood to enter our cells and fuel our bodies. If you don't have diabetes, your pancreas senses when glucose has entered your bloodstream and releases the right amount of insulin so the glucose can get into your cells. But if you have diabetes, this system doesn't work. When you've got type 1 diabetes, you can't make any insulin at all. If you've got type 2 diabetes, it's a bit different. The insulin you make either can't work effectively or you can't produce enough of it. In both types of diabetes, because glucose can't get into your cells, it begins to build up in your blood. And too much glucose in your blood causes a lot of different problems. To begin with, it leads to diabetes symptoms like having to wee a lot, being incredibly thirsty, and feeling very tired. You may also lose weight, get infections like thrush, or suffer from slow healing wounds. Over a long period of time, high glucose levels in your blood can seriously damage your heart, your eyes, your feet, and your kidneys. These are known as the complications of diabetes. But with the right treatment and care, people can live a healthy life. And there's much less risk that someone will experience these complications. If you've got diabetes, you can find lots of information and support about living with it using our website and helpline. As well as campaigning for everyone with diabetes to get the right care, Diabetes UK fund research into all types of diabetes, so we can develop new treatments and one day find a cure.
One day find a cure.
You can find out more about type 1 and type 2 diabetes and how they're treated in our next videos.
So, ladies and gentlemen, up to this point in time, there is no known cure for diabetes. So I'm begging you, unlike people I know who they go to fake, false, or phony websites and then send off money and they get potions or get tablets or what have you sent to them. How do you know whatever you're being sent, what's in it? Could be horse manure, could be cow dung, could be grass. Please do not send off any money to anybody who says, oh, we found a cure for diabetes. Now that you've just watched, you can watch it at your heart's content. It's 2 minutes long. Go to the diabetes.org.uk website, which is at the end. I'll show you it at the end. And you can show your relatives, your friends, your colleagues, your workmates, what is diabetes. It really sums it up nicely. But I tend to go a bit further. There are 4 well-known people who I'm going to tell you have type 1. And I'm going to explain type 1 if you didn't get a full gist of it then. Sir Philip Schofield, the man who does the voiceover in that, he's a well-known radio and TV presenter over here. He has type 1 diabetes. The next person I'm going to mention with type 1 is Sir Stephen Redgrave, who, although he has type 1 diabetes, for 5 Olympics on the trot, so that's over a 20-year period, every 4 years you have the Olympics, he won the gold medal for Britain in rowing with his rowing partners, okay? 5 Olympics, Sir Stephen Redgrave. A third person who has diabetes, and you probably would know her, is our former Prime Minister, Theresa May. She has type 1 diabetes. And the fourth person I'll mention is the well-known Black American actress Halle Berry, has type 1. Now, let me explain to you clearly what type 1 is. We all have a 6-inch gland situated from the navel string or the belly button going to the left, 6 inches in length, just behind the tummy area there. It produces the hormone insulin. Without insulin, ladies and gentlemen, you will die. You can survive without a leg, an arm, without any teeth, without any hair on your head. You cannot survive without insulin, the hormone that the pancreas makes, insulin. It regulates the blood sugar or the blood glucose that goes around the body from the food that we eat, okay, and the things that we drink. So 100 years ago, last year was exactly 100 years ago, Sir Frederick Banting, a Canadian doctor, and I was at his homestead 3 years ago, he noticed with his French medical student, Charles Best, a meager dog outside. In Jamaica, where they say maga dog. In their lab, they concocted this man-made, artificial, or synthetic substance called insulin. They injected it into the dog. You can look it up on the internet. The dog started to put on weight again and made a remarkable recovery. Of course, the insulin has been made much better and improved since then. So the 14th of November every year is celebrated, or I should say 14th of December. It's either November or December. Because of it, it's its birthday. That is World Diabetes Day. 14th of November, World Diabetes Day, in honor of Sir Frederick Banting. So everybody who has type 1, and remember I said only 8% of people have type 1, has to daily, in the stomach region, inject insulin to keep themselves alive. Without it, they will not survive. Some people don't like to inject, so what they do, they put a pump strapped to the side of their body, and it keeps stripping the insulin 24/7 to keep them alive. Now, some people say, well, why do these people get type 1? To this day, no medical person knows why some people, the pancreas completely stops working, and it happens so quickly. It happens within weeks. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. The tired, the toilet, the thirsty, the thinner, the blurred vision, everything your body is packing in, and then you have to take the insulin. That's type 1. Only 8% of people have type 1. Remember I said 90% of people have type 2. And as the chap said in that 2-minute video you saw, the body is making some insulin, but it's either not making enough or it's not doing its job properly. So in my case, it's hereditary. It runs in the Kelly family. So I sort of knew it was going to come my way. Now, some other people get type 2 for other reasons, because they're carrying too much weight. And even some thin people, as I said, can get diabetes. So we'll come on to that in a bit. But those are the issues here in terms of, it's this medical condition. It's blood glucose or blood sugar. Same thing as we in Jamaica call it sugar. But it's in terms of what we're eating and drinking. And these are the things we're going to talk about in a bit. So age is a factor. The older you get, the chances are diabetes will come your way. So if you're 40, then getting on into your 50s, 60s, diabetes can come your way. If it runs in the family, hereditary. Ethnicity, I'll show you a slide in a moment which shows why ethnicity, us being black people, we're more prone or susceptible to getting diabetes than white people. I'll show you that in a minute. Weight, if you're carrying too much weight, that can be a factor. The body mass index. The waist circumference can be a factor as well. How much weight is around the tummy. And one of the issues for some people, this is men then, because there's so much blood glucose or blood sugar in their system, when they're trying to make love to their partner, they cannot maintain an erection. It's called erectile dysfunction. Some people, as we said earlier, have heart attacks. Some have strokes. Of course, going with diabetes, it goes hand in hand with high blood pressure. And we know within the African Caribbean, the black community, we are more prone to having high blood pressure than any other ethnic group. And that's because of our love of only partaking a lot of salt intake. So high blood pressure, same thing for it is hypertension. And of course, high cholesterol. So we've got to look at our diet and our physical activity, which we'll come on to. But I'm going to mention 2 other types of diabetes, which I am aware of. Gestational diabetes. Some women during their pregnancy, it's not type 1, it's not type 2, it's during the gestation period when they're expecting the baby or babies. They develop specifically a condition called gestational diabetes. Once they've had the baby or babies, the diabetes disappears. It just goes. But what it is saying is that mother is at future risk of developing type 2 diabetes because she had gestational diabetes during the pregnancy. And the baby or babies that she had are also at risk of developing type 2 diabetes in later life. So that's important to know. B, when I go to these conferences and these doctors from Cambridge and Oxford and Birmingham University and what have you, talk about impaired glucose regulation. The first time I heard it, I thought, what the dickens is that word? What are they talking about? Impaired glucose regulation simply means you are borderline or pre-diabetes. You haven't got it yet. You're on the border or pre-diabetes. And I have to say to them when I go to these conferences, Why don't you speak the language of the people? If you tell the person he or she is on the border, on the cusp of a wave or borderline, or meaning before, they'll have a better understanding about what you're talking about. Using impaired glucose regulation doesn't cut it with a lot of people. We need to make sure the language is such that people will grasp what you're saying. Now, some of you in the past probably even now, are on steroid medication for other illnesses, other diseases, other illnesses, or so on. If you remain on steroids for too long a time, I have a cousin in America. She was on steroid, and when I visited her, she was as skinny as a rake, and she put on this, and I said, why are you so fat? Why are you so big? She said, oh, it's the steroids that have made her that size. Steroid-induced diabetes is an issue for some people. And once you get steroid, because the steroid has impacted on this gland I'm telling you about, the pancreas, and causing you to get the diabetes, then I'm afraid that's you having it forever. You can't get rid of it. Admittedly, some people with type 2 diabetes are able to lead such a very, very good life in terms of their diet and physical activity that the diabetes, for some people, not many, can go into remission or can be reversed. Ladies and gentlemen, it does not mean it has been cured. If they go back to eating unhealthily and not doing physical activity, the diabetes will come back. But very few people who have diabetes end up it going into remission. So what I'm saying to people who are pre-diabetes or borderline, I beg you, I plead with you, make the lifestyle changes if your doctor ever says to you you're pre-diabetes or borderline, so you don't end up getting it, okay? People from African, Caribbean, and South Asian backgrounds are 2 to 4 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes than white people. And people said to me, Tony, Mr. Kelly, why is that so? First of all, Black people and South Asian people get it from age 25 and with a lower body mass index. White people tend to get diabetes 15 years later at age 40. Those are facts. I'm not just making this up. These are things that have been given to me by the National Health Service. And the reasons are our genes, our genetics, our DNA, our metabolism, all mean the same thing. Genes, genetics, DNA, metabolism. Also, environmental factors such as living in an overcrowded apartment or house or what have you. Stress, this just normal stress. Racism has its part to play as well. Poor diet. Our diet on the whole is poor. We need to do something about it. We need to better our diet, which is what I'm going to talk about in a bit. And leading what we call the couch potato and sedentary lifestyle. Sitting on our proverbial, on our backside for most of the time and not doing enough physical activity. And I'm going to, in a moment, do some stuff which I do and which you're able to do in the comfort of your home. There is a belief as well, and that's being sort of exposed more so. Those of us who came over, our forefathers, foremothers, foreparents from West Africa, because apparently the east of Africa doesn't have issues of diabetes, but those of us who came from the west of Africa and all that stress and what have you on the slave ships, etc., and then going to the Caribbean where everything on the plantations was salt mackerel, salt beef, and salt this, salt pork, and so on. So getting all of that salt in our diet and the stress of working in the cane fields and so on, it is alleged that too has entered our whole DNA structure and causing people, because of that transatlantic route, to even more so develop diabetes within the Caribbean and in parts of America as well, because some of the slaves did end up in the Americas. The body mass index, that's when you put in your height and your weight. Now, I don't do kilograms, I'm afraid, but this is in kilograms. I prefer stones. So you measure yourself and see whether you're underweight, healthy weight, overweight, obese, or very obese, morbidly obese. And that's done in terms of how high you are, or how tall you are, I should say, how tall you are, and what your size is. That's the body mass index. You need to be able to work this out. But this is the one I want you to really take note of. Your waist circumference. And you'll see in big bold letters, not your trouser size. So Some of you might remember the Miss World or the Miss Jamaica competition, where the perfect beauty queen walking down the catwalk was 36-inch bust, 24-inch waist, and a 36-inch hip. The perfect hourglass figure. Now show me a woman who has a 24-inch waist these days. I'm afraid they don't exist. However, I want you, when you leave here, from your belly button or navel string, not from your trouser size, you are to measure your waist size from your belly button or navel. The ideal weight, and I use the word ideal very, very cagedly, the ideal weight for women should be 31.5 inches. And some of you are going to say, oh my God, mine's 40 or mine's 42 or mine's 38. All I'm begging you and asking you to do, let's say your waist size from the belly button navel string is 42 or 40. I want you to try and bring it down from 40 or 42 to 38 or 36. Because the more fat that you're able to get rid of, because that's where most of us put fat around when we're putting on weight, the more fat you're able to get away from the belly, you're enabling the pancreas, which is right behind there, the 6-inch gland I spoke about, you're enabling it to make more insulin and do its job properly. So if you're carrying too much weight around here, you need to be mindful of that. That's for women, 31.5. Asian men, there is a particular size that they must aim for. And I say aim for again, 35 inches. And I'm not just making these up. African men, black men, and white men are allowed 37 inches. But at the bottom it says, TOFI, T-O-F-I, thin on the outside, fat on the inside. So in Jamaica and parts of America and here in Britain, you have some people, they are skinny, they are slim, or as we would say in Jamaica, mager, and they still have diabetes. Why? Because the fat, so some people, the fat is deposited in the liver and around the pancreas, although they are slim. So that is why you find people also in China who will develop it, and they're not necessarily overweight or obese or fat or so on. So bear that in mind as we go along, please. So the symptoms, going to the toilet a lot, extreme thirst, some people get thrush and genital itching. I'm going to talk about slow healing of cuts and wounds in a minute. Blurred vision, I'm going to speak about. Extreme tiredness and weight loss. But this is the important one. For type 2 diabetes, sometimes there are no symptoms at all. You're going around, you haven't gone and got your health checked, your blood tests or your urine, and you're going around each day. And by the time you find out you've had it, because it can stay in your system for up to 10 years, working its wicked way at you, it's too late when you find out, and all the other things start happening. The blindness, the heart attacks, the strokes, the kidney failure, and so on. But I'm going to concentrate for a moment on slow healing of cuts and wounds. I'm going to ask you, please, even when you're on the Caribbean, in the sunny beach, or in your comfort of your home, I beg you, do not walk around barefoot, even on the carpet at your home or on the lino floor or on the beach in Jamaica or so on. Have slippers, sandals, or something, footwear on, because there's this thing called nerve endings. I have to go once a year to see my diabetic nurse, once a year, and she touches all the parts of the sole of my feet, because people with diabetes have less sensation in their foot bottom. And what can happen is the maca, the thorn, the thumbtack, the needle, the pin can actually go up into your feet and stay in there and fester, and you're not feeling it. And that is when the limbs, the lower limbs, have to be chopped off. And I'll tell you a true story. About 6 years ago, the gym I used to go to at the time, I didn't see a chap. And this chap, when I tell you he's muscular, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he wears the t-shirts and the shorts, and you see every sinew out of his body. But because everywhere I go, I have a lot of these t-shirts and hoodies saying diabetes, and on the back of it, diabetes ambassador. And this guy stopped me one day and said, "You're Mr. Diabetes, aren't you?" He didn't even know my name. He said, "I want you to go and look for my brother in Dudley Road Hospital." And I said, "Why?" And he wouldn't tell me. So I did go and look for his brother. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a true story. He was at home with his 15-year-old son, and a glass fell on the floor, and he picked up all the splinters. So he thought with the brush, pan and brush. A splinter went up into his big toe. But typical of most men, instead of going and getting it seen to he didn't know that the splinter was in the toe, but it started to fest and fest and fest and turn real. In Jamaica, they say tembe or sore foot or thinking toe. And it was getting worse and getting worse. And he had a friend visit him and said, my God, all that pus coming out of your toe and it's the stench of it, you need to go to the doctor. So he reluctantly did go to the doctor. The doctor took one look at the toe and said, you better get yourself down to Dudley Road Hospital because you either have gangrene or septicemia. I don't know which. He went down to the hospital, they admitted him, and they cut off his big toe. Ladies and gentlemen, sadly, it did not end there. The gangrene or septicemia had spread to his other 4 toes. This is a true story. They cut off his other 4 toes. Sadly, it had spread in all of that time because he'd not been and had it seen to. It had spread just below the knee. They chopped off his knee. Now, can you imagine this man who is so full of pride and showing off his muscles and so on? You know what set in? Depression. He closed all the curtains at his home. He wouldn't let anybody come and see him because now he's going to have to be fitted with an artificial limb, a prosthetic limb. And this is not the image he wants to project as a macho, manly man. And I used to have to ring him up and counsel him and advise him and say, you've lost your limb. You have not lost your life. And eventually he managed to get over that dark cloud that he was in. And now he's okay again now. But that's the point I'm making. Do not walk around barefoot anywhere. It might be nice and hot on the sunny beach and so on. There might be glass on the sand. There might be a nail, a rusty nail, a mac or something or a thorn. You must always have shoes on or slippers or something. Another thing I say to people is, when I was growing up in Jamaica, the back of the foot here, where all the rusty, the skin, and you need to, in Jamaica, you just go down to the riverside. Some of you will remember that. Or you just rub your foot against a stone and get rid of all of that dead skin, rough skin. Over here, we have to go into the chemist or the drugstore or the health store and buy these pumice stones or little graters and rub it all off. So that's the issue there. You need to take care of your feet because if you allow all of that rusty skin to stay there and a pin or a needle or a thorn or marker manages to go into it, that's when it just stays in there and it just festers in there. Also, teaching my granny to suck eggs, and if you had elderly parents and so on, dry between the toes properly when you've had your shower and bath. I say that my granny taught me that as a child growing up. You must, and don't put any oil or lotion between the toes. Yes, you can put talcum powder if you wish, but dry between the toes properly. And I can't but stress the issue of making sure you have things on your feet in order to prevent any cuts and slow healing of cuts and wounds. Blurred vision, I talk about a lot. And the reason is I don't wear glasses. I have perfect vision, so I don't wear glasses. But every year, because I'm diabetic, type 2, I have to go to the optician and they put some drops in the eye and the camera takes the pictures of the eye. They send them off to the lab and it comes back, Mr. Kelly, you are good to go for another year. There's nothing wrong with your eyes. It's a big name, diabetic retinopathy screening. But to keep it simple, when I'm doing my events out there, I call it, so it's easy to understand, diabetes eye screening. Not ice cream, eye screening. And I am urging you, so many people said to me, Tony, you know who diagnosed my diabetes or gave me some inkling that I might have it? They said to me, I wear glasses. And when I go for my annual eye checkup at the optician, the optician says, I don't like what I see forming at the back of your eyes. You better go to your doctor and get the blood test done. And what I want you to understand with this, why I'm saying this is, there are a lot of people there who are squinting and not seeing the small print properly. And then they say, oh, it's because in my 60s, 70s, 80s, my vision is going. Ladies and gentlemen, 9 times out of 10, it's nothing to do with your age. It is a diabetes having its wicked way in the nerves and the blood vessels at the back of the eye, which is causing the blurred vision and eventual blindness. I will name you the 4 countries in the Commonwealth where diabetes is rampant in terms of blindness. St. Lucia, Belize, Dominica, where I was 3 years ago, going in all the little villages and so on to give them talks. There's lots of blind people there. And Jamaica. Those are the 4 top countries in the Commonwealth where preventable or avoidable blindness, if people were looking after their diabetes, knew they had it in the first place and were looking after it, then blurred vision wouldn't set in. So I'm asking you, please, that's important. And also, while I talk about blurred vision, going back to slow healing of cuts and wounds, the number 1 country in the Commonwealth where chopping off of toes and feet due to slow healing of cuts and wounds is Barbados. More people there in Barbados lose their feet and their toes because of slow healing of cuts and wounds. This is why I'm saying this is a serious condition. So the extreme tiredness and the weight loss, and as I said, sometimes there are no symptoms at all. So we have the eye disease, which we spoke about, heart disease, kidney disease, and nerve disease. And what I also need to point out to you, for the 70th anniversary of the National Health Service 3 years ago, they had a big event at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital in Birmingham. And they said, who can we invite to come and be interviewed on live television? And people said, oh, get Tony Kelly. So I was on live television, BBC. And the first question the interviewer asked me was, so Mr. Kelly, you are a diabetes sufferer. I said, excuse me? I am not a diabetes sufferer. I am living with this medical condition. I am managing and controlling it. It is not managing or controlling me. By the time I get home, my wife said, the phone didn't stop ringing. People said, what a good answer you gave. My other text messages on the mobile. People are saying, wow, you had the perfect answer for her. There are people out there who suffer from diabetes. I've seen it firsthand in Jamaica. I'm not a diabetes sufferer, and I'm not having anybody describe me as such. I manage mine so well, and this is the point where I'm trying out there. I'm on this passion, this mission to get that message across. Now, some of you might not have the chance to go to the doctors. And when I do it in some of the African countries and so on, and the cost of paying to get a blood test done in Jamaica or at the hospitals or wherever in America, you can go to the diabetes website. The same website where you saw the 2-minute video, the same website has the Know Your Risk tool. Know Your Risk tool. You arm yourself with your tape measure, inch measure or tape measure, and a scale. You put in your height, you put in your weight, you put in your waist size from the belly button, you put in your age, you put in your gender. It tells you all the things you have to put in, and you put in your ethnicity, whether you're white or African or Caribbean or Asian. And it can actually work out. That Know Your Risk tool, the risk score can work out. Over 1 million people have done that here in Britain. It can work out whether you're no risk, NO, low risk, LOW, medium risk, or high risk. This is even before you go get your bloods done at a GP's, doctor, surgery, or what have you. And based on that, if you live in Birmingham, in Britain, you put in your postcode. In America, you put in your zip code. And it will signpost you to go for a free set of courses, not lasting an hour like what I'm doing, an hour and a half. It lasts over about 6-7 months, where it's taken at a slower pace, and you can learn. These are for people who are told you're pre-diabetes or borderline, pre-diabetes borderline, high or medium risk, okay? If you know or low risk, you don't need to go on it, but you still need to make sure you're eating healthily. Now, and the alternative to that is, well, go and see your doctor or your GP or medical person and go and get your bloods done to definitely have the definitive answer as to whether you have it or you're low, medium, or high risk. Eating a healthy balanced diet, and we're going to come on to that in a bit. But before I go to the healthy balanced diet, I hope you can see me. I'm now going to do for you the physical activity that I want you to do. I never use the word exercise. I used to in the earlier days, and I remember a woman distinctly saying to me at our old people's home, a residential home, she said, Mr. Kelly, I'm in a wheelchair. You're telling me to do exercise. Exercise conjures up images. You want the person to go to the gym. I'm not saying you need to go to the gym. From the comfort of your home, you can do the following things that I'm going to go through with you. Number one is the bus stop. If you have to take the bus and come off at the bus, don't come off at your stop. Come off at the stop before or the stop after, and you're going to walk. You're not going to walk as if you're going behind a coffin or casket in a funeral procession. You're going to walk briskly, 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 briskly. So you're building up a sweat and you're allowing the heart muscles to pump the blood around the body. Brisk pace walking or fast pace walking. So that's number one. Okay. Number two, just like in Britain here, same in America and Jamaica, we all have the brand new televisions. In Jamaica, in Britain, when I came here in 1979, we had 4 channels: BBC One, BBC Two, ITV Channel 4. Every time you wanted to change the television, you'd get up off your posterior, you'd go over to the television, you'd change the channel, you change it, you turn it off, turn it down to the volume. All I see everybody doing now is beep, 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 beep. So the only physical activity they're getting is that finger and that thumb pressing on the button. You know what you do for me? And I mean it in all sincerity and seriousness. And people laugh when I say it. Hide the remote control, put dead batteries in it, or take out the batteries. And if you, within an hour, have to get up 5 or 6 times to change the channel, you have done some physical activity. Please, I'm asking you to do that. Get into the habit of do that. Some people have invested in this thing called Alexa or Siri. Alexa, turn off the lights. Siri, turn on the radio. Alexa, do this. This machine, this little thing. And you go to most homes now, people. Alexa, do this. Siri, do that. Turn off the lights. Open the door. Open the curtains. Height of laziness. Put Alexa and Siri aside and get up off your posterior and go and turn on the lights or turn on the radio or do whatever it was. That's another thing. Another thing I need you to do is you get plastic bottles. They must be plastic. Start off with smaller if you're girl, you can't reach them. But plastic bottles with water. And just like how Arnold Schwarzenegger, the muscle builder, the bodybuilder, does his exercise with his dumbbells, all you're doing in the comfort of your home, ladies and gentlemen, you haven't left your home, is using the water in the bottles and doing this. Literally. Then when you're tired of doing it like that, you alternate. The more weight these are, the better for you. And then you take them up here. That is physical activity you're doing. And also, you don't want the top here to be nice and toned up and so on. You bring the feet into the equation. So you do the feet as well. And by the time you finish, because remember, it's the blood glucose in your system. These parts of the arms you have not used in years. So the more physical activity you're able to do, you're circulating the blood glucose or the blood sugar and getting rid of that excess that's in your system in order to prevent the diabetes. So that's another thing you do. Another thing you do, I always ask in my events, how many people were born in a motor car? And so far in 10 years this June, only 2 people have put their hands up and said they weren't born in a car, but they were born in an ambulance on the way to the hospital. So I forgive them. But what I'm saying to you is, why do we have to take the car everywhere we're going? When I grew up in Jamaica, it's hill and gully, and you walk 2 miles to school and you walk back and so on. We need to get into the habit of walking more, fast-paced walking. Please park the car at home and do all the school runs. You see the kids being dropped off right outside the school. In our day of growing up in Jamaica, you walk 2-3 miles to school and then walk back in the hot sun as well. So why this propensity of the car? Park the car, please. I ask you then also to form a walking club. So me, Paulette, Nicole, and your pastor are part of a walking club. If you try and do it on your own, after about a week, you're going to give up. So in your neighborhood, you form a walking club. So I call on Paulette's house. Paulette start make excuse. Oh, my head hurt me and my foot hurt me and I can't do it today. And we already agreed we're going on this walk, you know. And I said, Paulette, we have 2 other more people to pick up on the walk. Stop the foolishness. Go get, because you don't even get dressed. I said, go get your clothes on. You're holding us up, but go get your clothes. And I said, the fresh air. You have to motivate people. The fresh air will do you the world a good, Paulette. Come on, let's go on the walk. Then we call on Nicole. And Nicole said, oh my God, what took you so long? You know how long I'm here waiting? And I tell Nicole the story about Paulette. Then the last person we're picking up on the walk is the pastor. And him start make excuse, said, oh, him did have a bit too much to drink last night. And him have a bit of a hangover. And it's too cold outside as well. And we just say, Pastor, we're not leaving you. You're coming on the walk with us. And the fresh air will do you the world of good. So he reluctantly comes. And all 4 or 5 or 6 of you start to walk. Ladies and gentlemen, don't walk on flat surfaces. You will gain no benefit from walking on flat surfaces. You find gradients, steep hills, and then you start talking about President number 45, you talk about the war, you talk about your children, you talk about COVID, you talk about the lovely weather, you talk about your workplace. You suddenly have walked 3 miles up a hill, which you wouldn't have done under normal circumstances. And even the ones who are a bit slower, you allow them you say, okay, we'll go up to the next station and we'll wait for you up the next hill and we'll wait until you catch up with us. And you do it as a group. It's a group activity, mobilizing, motivating, geeing people on. A walking club. I beg you, form one within your neighborhood. And even if the neighborhood is flat, you walk around the block 4 or 5 times at a speedy pace. Make sure it's speedy, so you're sort of out of breath. That is something I'm encouraging you to do. You will notice then from the walks how much the fat, after a while, start to just drip off from the areas we want to lose the weight. Okay? Then apart from that, the other thing you can do is the stairs. I go into a lot of supermarkets and everybody, first of all, park their car right at the entrance of the supermarket. You know what you do from now? Park the car way down yonder and walk up to the supermarket. Then when you get in, a lot of the supermarkets in the bigger stores, bigger supermarkets, have this thing called the travelator. Now, nobody has a travelator in their home. Nobody. So what the dickens, we're going to the supermarket. The steps or stairs are right next to the travelator, and you go and watch. Just stand by and watch. 9 out of every 10 people plunk themselves on the travelator to travel 25 yards. Come on, people. Your feet were made for walking. That's what God gave us our feet for. If I had my way, I would actually turn off the travelators in all of these stores and the escalators and so on, and make people walk up the stairs, because that's how you're going to get the physical activity which I'm talking about. I go into the city center and they say, what floor you want, sir? Some of them don't know. What floor you want? I say, I'm going up to the 19th floor. And the people look on me as if I'm crazy, ask me if I'm Superman. I said, no, I'm going up to the 19th floor and I'm going to walk. Remember, the lift stop at the 3rd, the 5th, the 7th, the 8th, the 9th, the 12th. I walked and reached up to the 19th floor and could have a cup of tea before the lift arrived. I'm asking you, please. Gardening is physical activity. Mowing the lawn is physical activity. Cleaning the windows, hoovering, line dancing, find things, hockey, playing whatever takes your fancy, football, soccer. Find something that takes your fancy and build it into your routine as physical activity. I'm at this stage going to tell you, and you might marvel, the things that I have done for the last 16, 17 years, every single week without fail. I go to a Pilates class. I go to a yoga class. I play badminton. I couldn't swim, and I go into the water. It's called aquarobics. And you're in the water and you're pushing your limbs against the flow of the water while the instructor is there with the music on. That's another very good form of exercise to do. Now, 3 years ago, some of you will know Linford Christie because he was actually born in Jamaica. He's Britain's top runner until he retired, won the Olympic gold, the World Championship gold, etc., in the 100 meters. Linford Christie, I read an article that he learned to swim 3 years ago. Just read the article since COVID-19 and the lockdown. And I thought, if it's good enough for Linford Christie, it's good enough for Tony Kelly. And there's this myth out there that Black people can't swim. Yes, when I was growing up in St. Thomas, my grandmother said, I am your favorite grandson, so you're not going to no river, you're not going to no beach, you're not going to no sea, you're going to drown. I have never learned to swim. Now, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I've just had my 14th or 15th swimming lesson in my 60s here at the local swimming pool down in where I live. And the instructor has said, you know, you're so good. I am moving you from the beginners group into the intermediary group. And I thought to myself, wow, isn't that something? Look at me, who couldn't even cook and boil an egg, have now become the head cook and bottle washer in the home. The same in terms of swimming. Me, who couldn't swim at all, I would drown. Now at my age, in my 60s, have actually got another. So apart from the Pilates, the yoga, the aquarobics, the swimming, the badminton, and wait for this, I go to a Zumba class every single week, and I've done that for years. And they laugh at me because in the class, I am the one, and you as Jamaicans will know this, one dege man in a Zumba class with 26, 27 women. And all I said jokingly, I am the rose amongst you thorns, but I'm there for a purpose. I am there because I want to keep myself healthy. They can laugh as much as they want, but I am getting the physical act. I had a class today. Sometimes another man or another two men might come, but most of the time it's just women out there doing Zumba. I don't mind. I am there because I want to keep mind, body, and soul ticking over. So I'm saying loud and clear, be more active regularly and stop smoking. Personal experience. I have something called the sickle cell trait. It don't bother me at all. If you have the full-blown sickle cell, either sickle cell disease or sickle cell anemia, then all our blood vessels, corpuscles, and blood cells are round in shape. But if it's sickle, it means it's like a crescent, a half moon or crescent, or like the sickle that you use to cut the cane or the grass. It's shaped like that. So people who go through a sickle cell crisis, it's when the blood, the corpuscles and the cells are trying to go in, and because they're not round in shape, they're sort of really painful, and the person's after it. So that's the full-blown sickle cell anemia or sickle cell disease. But I don't have that. And a lot of people have, Black people have the sickle cell, but I only have the trait. If my wife had the trait as well, the chances are our daughter would have been born with the full-blown sickle cell anemia or sickle cell disease. So in the earlier days, I have to go and get my, in America, I think you call it A1, you know, the blood test, HbA1c, or what's your A1 reading. So in the earlier days, when I was diagnosed with diabetes 18 years ago, I went for the first 2 years and they said, Mr. Kelly, it didn't work. You have to get your annual blood reading done. You have to come back. And I said, what you calling me back for? It didn't work. It didn't work. Then the doctor explained to me, because I have the sickle cell trait, I cannot do the HbA1c, which, ladies and gentlemen, you can't fool the clinics and the doctors. It actually tells you the HbA1c, blood glucose monitoring, what you've ate or drank for the last 3 months. That's a fact. For the last 3 months, it is able to distinguish what your eating habits have been. Because I have the sickle cell trait, I have to do one called the fructosamine test, completely different. And it only can tell me what I've ate or drank for the last 2 weeks, only the last 2 weeks. So I jokingly said to my wife and my son-in-law and my daughter sometime, oh, I'm going to have the this, that, and the other prior to, just jokingly, prior to coming up to the 2-week period before I go and get the blood test. But you need to be mindful of that. So some people also have thalassemia, which is another one, apart from the sickle cell anemia, sickle cell disease, sickle cell trait, and thalassemia. That's another one which you can't do the 3-month HbA1c. And then of late, when I go, the student nurses will I said, what you going to put on the vial? And they say, HbA1c. I said, oh, no, you're not. So I have to be there telling them. So you have to open your mouth and tell these people what nobody knows your body better than you do. These are people just passing through and taking blood tests and so on. So they use the standard thing. And Black people need to open them up more is what I am saying, just like how I do. Blood pressure monitor. A year ago, I went down to the doctor's surgery at my annual visit, and she said, your blood pressure seems higher than usual. Ladies and gentlemen, I have something called white coat syndrome. And it happened to when I was in Jamaica and had a few teeth taken out. They never put enough of the local anesthetic in it. And by the time they're pulling out the teeth, the most painful experience imaginable. So anytime I see a doctor, man or woman, in a white coat, or have a stethoscope, or if I have to go to a clinic or hospital, even to visit, the heart start beating faster. That's why the blood. So I said to them, well, take 3 readings, which is what they do anyway. And they said, but it's still very high. And the next thing they said, we want to put you on blood pressure tablets. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to stand firm and say no. Get a second opinion, or if necessary, ask for a blood pressure monitor to be put on. So they fitted me with a blood pressure monitor about 3 months after for 24 hours. And when I took it back, they analyzed the readings on the computer. They said, Mr. Kelly, for the time you had the monitor on for 24 hours, your blood pressure was as fine as ever. Now, that's the point I'm making. Always go and get a second opinion or say, well, no. Some years ago, I had something called pernicious anemia. Never heard the words before. Know of anemia on its own, but not pernicious anemia, which is lacking in vitamin B12. So I went down, they did the bloods. I wouldn't have done that 18 years ago, but I did this time, 5-6 years ago. And they did the bloods and it came back, you have pernicious anemia. I said, okay. And I came home. For 3 days, I have a good set of doctors that I go to the doctor's surgery. They kept ringing me. The receptionist kept, Mr. Kelly, the doctors say you have to come back. Because you're type 2 diabetes, you have to come back and see a doctor. So about the 3rd day, I went back down and I saw the doctor. And I said, doctor, what's the problem? The doctor said, because you have pernicious anemia, B12, lacking in B12, you have to have an injection, a B12 injection. But ladies and gentlemen, listen to this. I am to have a B12 injection every 3 months for the rest of my life. I just looked at the doctor and said, that's not happening in a million years. You have to wheel and turn and come again. Him look at me and wondering, what am I talking about wheel and turn? I remember it to this day. So I came home. I went and looked up the Pernicious Anemia Society. I spoke to the doctors and nurses who are in my family as well, because this is a new term for me. Lacking in vitamin B12. All people who are vegan or vegetarian have to take vitamin B12 tablets. And the older generation, us in our 50s, 60s, 70s, we are lacking in vitamin B12. We need to supplement that. And how do you do it? By dairy products. And apart from dairy products, I went to Holland & Barrett. It's a sort of a health store in Birmingham. You have them scattered all over the place, by different names. There's something called Floradix. I urge you, if you're getting in age like my age and so on and above, Floradix, no preservatives, no colorings, no additives. Liquid iron and vitamin formula. It has in it iron, vitamin B2, B6, B12. My wife prefers one called Metatone Tonic. Same thing, but she prefers Metatone Tonic. I do Floradix. So I went and bought this at one of the drugstores off the counter. You don't have to get it on prescription. And I go to Holland & Barrett and buy a slow releasing 1 a day B12 tablet. Just 1 a day, slow releasing. So it plus the Floradix. Then I went back to see the doctor in 3 months after that. He said, but Mr. Kelly, your B12 has shot up to the normal range. And I even jokingly said to him, so what the dickens you was wanting to juke me in my bottom every 3 months for the rest of my life? So I'm coming back with that experience to say to you, you need to open your mouth. You need to ask questions. I remember when I was a child growing up, my grandmother said to me, you're very shy, but you're a very bright little boy. Open your mouth and talk. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid I haven't stopped talking. And I'm saying the same to you. If you have to go to a doctor, do not put them on a pedestal. They're not gods. They're human beings like me and you. And if necessary, take somebody to advocate on your behalf. So many people said to me, Tony, I wish we could clone you and have you everywhere. But no, it's only one Tony Kelly. You can't have more than one Tony Kelly, I'm afraid. The other issue there was kidney stones. I used to love, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just giving you these experiences for you to bear in mind. There will be others, but full fat cream cow's milk. The more cream on the top of the cow's milk, the better. And then one day in the dead of night, this is about 11, 12 years ago, I had the most almighty pain down one side. And I said to my wife, I think my appendix has burst. And she said, stop your foolishness. Your appendix, because she was much brighter than me. She said, your appendix isn't on that side anyway. They called for the ambulance and it took me to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. I had formed crystal stones, kidney stones from crystal. The whole heap of cow's milk that I had been drinking had formed into crystals, kidney stones in my system. And I was unable to pass them via urine. So it was blocking my whole system and the pain, the equivalent of a man giving birth to a child. Eventually, they kept me in hospital for about 3 days. And my mother said to them, to me and to my wife, don't let them operate on you. Try and pass them out just under normal circumstances, which I managed to do. But the doctor gave me some advice. He says, if you don't want to come back in here with kidney stone issues, and it's sort of similar to gallstones as well, stop drinking cow's milk. Full stop, period. I haven't touched cow's milk since then. I go for plant-based milk. Here they are. Rice milk, almond milk, oat milk, coconut milk, and cashew milk. Rice, almond, oat, coconut, and cashew milk. They don't taste as nice as cow's milk. Yes, admittedly, they become an acquired taste. But cow's milk is for babies and children for the formation of bones and teeth. Adults need to drink less cow's milk, or if not, any at all. So eat a healthy, balanced diet. And notice a group of people who suffer from, and I'll say suffer now, and get diabetes even more. Taxi drivers, bus drivers, van drivers, tube drivers, lorry drivers. Simply put, they are sitting on their proverbial for most of the day. Then they get home and they watch the TV watching them, and then they go to bed and they have done no physical activity. And another physical activity which I left out, which I would like you to start doing, with, especially for yourselves and with in the comfort of your home, especially the elderly people, when you have them on the sofa or the settee or the lounge chair, sitting on there for 6, 7, 8 hours. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to help them on either side to stand up. It might take them 2 minutes to stand up from their seat, but assist and enable and empower them to do so. Be very patient with them. And then let them sit down again, and you do it 3, 4 times. And when Paulette and Nicole invite me back in a year's time to do this, or when I come over to the Bronx, Brooklyn, Manhattan, where I visit all the time, or Long Island or Queens, and I do it there in person, they said, Mr. Kelly, you know, my grandmother or my grandfather can now do 10 of those up and down. It's movement. In Jamaica, they call it Jamaica moves. I am saying the same. We fly a lot. I used to see people going off to Asia or Africa or America or the Caribbean. And you're sitting down in the plane for 7, 8, 9 hours. Come on, people. You need to get up. You need to walk up and down the aisle of the plane. You need to go down to where the toilet is. Even if you don't want to go to the toilet, but get up in your seat, stand up and sit down, wiggle your toes, and so on, stretch. Because deep vein thrombosis will set in. DVT, deep vein thrombosis, if you sit so long in one position. That's the point I'm making here. Take your medications as prescribed. And over here, we have something now called social prescribing. It's the buzzword, social prescribing. What doctors are able to do, instead of constantly big pharma prescribing medication, they now have budgets over here whereby they can send you to the gym, to swimming classes, to line dancing classes, to an allotment where you can, allotment is like when you send somebody to ground to cultivate, gardening and so on. It's on their budget. And we're trying to encourage more people to get off the medication and go down the physical activity route, what you sometimes probably would used to call, which I don't, exercise, okay? And control your glucose levels in order to prevent complication. Now, this is a chap in Jamaica, and he's linked up, and I'm going to Jamaica later this year and then flying off from there on to Barbados. He used to swear by smoothies, telling his patients to take smoothies, more smoothies, whether the fruit smoothies or the vegetable smoothies. Ladies and gentlemen, smoothies, our mouth, we're supposed to masticate or chew the food and make the saliva in the mouth, whether it be the nut, whether it be the apple, the banana, the kale, the callaloo, the pop chow. We chew it normally, the Brussels sprout, let the salivas do what they have to do, let it go down into the stomach area, and the amino acids and peptic acids do what they're supposed to do and dissipate the stuff around the body. With a smoothie, in the mouth, and it passes either through urine or through feces. The stomach has not had the chance to do what it should do had you chewed on it and masticated, and it goes into a bolus or ball. So you need to be mindful about smoothies. They're not the be all and end all. I wouldn't encourage you to do smoothies. Those are the sites I'm encouraging you to go. Helpline@diabetes.org.uk. If you were in England, I'm sure in America they have the American Diabetes Association, and they have a number you can call up. And I have to, when I go to the Asian communities, I say to them, listen, don't be shy. They have people there speaking in Urdu, Punjabi, Gujarati, Arabic, Mupuru, whatever languages, to be able to converse with you. And the other two sites, so those are websites you can go to. Go to them, the tried and tested ones, instead of the fake, false, or phony ones that are out there. At the same in Jamaica, I'm sure they have places you can ring up. Barbados Diabetes Association, the American Diabetes Association. Those are the places if you want advice. Plus, at the end here, you will see my Tony Kelly Diabetes@hotmail.com, that you can also, if you want to get in touch with me, and I can signpost you accordingly. Now I have two more to show, so I'm going to stop sharing. And I think if I remember how Nicole said now, I can bring up cultural myths. And is that now sharing? Am I hearing anybody? Hello?
I'm here, but I didn't see the screen sharing.
You have to start sharing again.
Is it there now?
No, you have to start sharing again.
Oh, I thought I did. Hang on. So if I bring it back down, and if I go to, I need to go to where, yes, I need to go to where you guys are. You're in the show. Hang on. Remember what I do now here. Share. So press share.
Mm-hmm.
Share screen.
Mm-hmm.
Share screen. And I think I should be okay now.
Okay.
Is something sharing now?
No.
Oh dear, what have I done wrong there? Bear with me. Hang on. At the moment, I've got it up. Do people with diabetes need to avoid? So I'm going to minimize it. Do I need to minimize it?
No, leave it up and then get back over to StreamYard and hit share.
Hang on. Go back over to StreamYard. Right. And window. Share. I think I'm in now. Am I in now?
Yes, you are.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, so let me bring this to me. So this is a food and diabetes quiz, which I'm going to quickly go through with you. The first thing it asks here, I do this when I'm out there in face-to-face, but here, do people with diabetes need to follow a special diet? Now, some people strictly put up their hands. I said hands up, and people put up their hands. And I will explain to them, there is no need to follow a special diet. We all must eat a healthy, well-balanced diet. So in the days when I was growing up in Whitehall, St. Thomas, Jamaica, back in the 60s and 70s, the people who had diabetes, and there were so many in our family, their pot was completely different from the pot for us as little children. And we didn't know then, but we now know now that all of us just should eat a healthy, well-balanced diet. No need for special diet. The people with diabetes need to stop eating rice. Now, some people shoot their hand up and say, yes, Mr. Kelly, yes, Tony, we must stop eating rice. I say, excuse me? 2 billion people live in China. Are you telling me the paddy fields of China, these people must stop eating rice? I don't think so. However, this is a score, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, the portion of rice you eat on your plate at any one sitting must fit comfortably in the palm of your hand. And some people would jokingly say, Tony, are you talking the uncooked rice? No, I'm talking the cooked rice. It must fit comfortably in the palm of your hand, okay? And some people say, but Tony, me's a big man or a big woman, you know. And I remember the days when we used to love me rice and peas, 6, 7, 8, 9 tablespoons of rice and peas. And my grandmother would say, your eye is too big for your belly. So I'm telling you loud and clear. Remember, apart from the rice on your plate, the portion, the palm, you're going to have your meat dish. If you're a meat eater, you're going to have your fats, you're going to have your proteins, etc. And your vegetables, of course. Then the 3 types of rice you must aim for are, note them very carefully, brown rice, wild rice, and I'll spell that because people sometimes think I say white. Brown rice, wild, W-I-L-D rice. That is available in most supermarkets. The third rice, which is very, very good for you, and is white or brown, is a rice called basmati rice. If you go on the diabetes.org.uk website, it tells you brown rice, wild rice, and basmati rice. Somebody asked me the other day, what about bulgur? And I remember as a child growing up in Jamaica, we used to eat a lot of bulgur wheat. That too is very, very good for you, okay? Do people with diabetes need to avoid sweet fruit like mango and banana? No, you don't. Yes, it's natural sugar or what we call fructose, natural sugar or fructose. But then that means that you must avoid it. You can have, but within limitations. So the darker the banana skin is, the sweeter the banana will be. So the wait till the mango, the banana gone dark, where you're consuming more sugar. Wait, let it go sort of half ripe or turn, as we would say. And nowadays, excuse me, the bananas when I was growing up in Jamaica were papa-sized finger bananas. Now they're long like this, and you have to cut them in 2. I don't know where they get these bananas from. But my doctor says to me, and listen very carefully to this, she says, because we get in the mango season, which is going to start soon, from Jamaica, live and direct, the East Indian mangoes, the Julie mangoes, and I will kill you for mangoes, I'll be honest with you. From I grew up in Jamaica, wash your pot, turn them down, it's mango time. Granny and my aunts and this and my uncles and so on, they never saw us during the summer holidays because we were mango bush feasting ourselves on mangoes. My doctor over here says, Tony, I am giving you permission to eat 4 or 5 mangoes at a time when you go down to the Bullring market to buy your mangoes. And she says, because you do Pilates, you do yoga, you do badminton, you do swimming, you do acrobics, you walk everywhere. You are constantly burning up the calories. You don't have time to be sitting down, the couch potato lifestyle, to pile on the pounds. So if you're going to go down the mango route, I'm afraid you're going to have to do some physical activity to burn up the calories. Line dancing or acrobics or swimming or whatever takes your fancy. But fruits I'll ask you to eat more of. Blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries. I'll repeat them. Blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, and raspberries. And the one exotic one out of that, which is fiber and very good for you, is blueberries. Eat them just like that, or eat them in yogurt. Not yogurt with add sugar. Plain yogurt. Plain yogurt with the blueberries, or the blueberries on their own, or put some of the blueberries in your cereal with the bran flake. Notice the things I'm going to say. Bran flake, oats meal, oats porridge, Weetabix, shredded wheat. Not the sugar pops and those that the kids like. Go for the brands, the bran flakes, that they're far better for you. But fruits are good, but within reason. Unless you're gonna be doing a lot of activity, then the more fruits you can eat, the better. And if you're doing juices, the orange juice and the apple juice and the grapefruit juice and so on, If it's not the one that you've squeezed and you get it in the carton, dilute it. Get into the habit of diluting it for the kids. Turn around so that they don't see and put some water in it and give it to them. The fruit juices these days are packed with sugar, and you need to watch your sugar consumption. The more vegetables you can eat, the better. The red onion, the red carrot, the red tomatoes, the red this, the red that, all the reds, the red grapes, the red cabbage, the red onion, all the reds are good for you. There's 2 reds I'm going to tell you need to cut down on. Well, one red, it's not a vegetable, but it's red meat. I know we from the Caribbean, we love with oxtail, which is red. We love with curry goat, which is red. We love with burger, which is red, or red meat on the whole. Red meat is the main cause of prostate cancer in men, and red meat is the main cause of colon cancer in all of us. We need to cut down on our red meat portions. I beg you, please, and go for more vegetables in your diet. Dal and beans, that's fiber. A lot of Asian people like to go for the dal, the lentils, the pulses, the lentils. Yes, that's good. But one bean I'll tell you to cut down on, and it is baked beans. Baked beans is packed with sugar and salt, unless you go to the supermarkets and ask for the reduced sugar and salt baked beans. Now, we love with coconut oil. We love with fry-ups. The Asians love the ghee. We are into the coconut oil, and there's the palm oil and the butter. Ladies and gentlemen, you've got to cut down on the fry-ups. You need to boil, bake, steam, grill, and roast. In the Kelly household, we don't do fry-ups. We boil, we bake, we steam, we grill, we roast. Even the Johnny cake or fried dumpling, we start it in a little oil, and then we transfer it to the oven. And I'll give you a story. I remember some years ago, we went to Jamaica and went to Hellshire Beach, and they gave us this thing to eat. And I thought, what the hell is this? You all must know it. Festival. Explain to me to this day, why are you adding sugar? I know some people love it, but why are people adding sugar to a normal fried dumpling or Johnny cake? I cannot get my head around that. So you could give me 1,000,001 festivals. I'm not eating it. I refuse to eat. I don't understand why that has become a sort of a culture and a tradition where they're putting sugar in the dumpling and now calling it festival. See all that what you call donut there and the crisps and so on. No. Once in a blue moon. So you boil, you steam, you bake, you grill, and you roast. You cut down on the whole heap of fry-ups. It's not good for you. You can't avoid all sugar. You have to have some sugar. But you see all that chocolate, this is made in Britain. Not good for you. Go for dark chocolate, which has 60, 70, up to 80% cocoa in it. It's bitter in taste, but it is far better for your body and for your system. And most supermarkets in America, just as in Jamaica and here in Britain, sell the dark chocolate with the 70, 80, 90% cocoa in it. That's the chocolate to go for, more than the sweet one, which is packed with sugar. And all that whole heap of donut and digestive biscuits and cookies and so on, Entenmann's and all that stuff. Once in a while, you must have that if you want to stay healthy. Diabetes, should they avoid diabetic food? Oh, yes, because they're no good for you. Notice that market ploy. On it, it says no sugar added. And I know a lot of people with diabetes who will say, oh, it have no sugar added. Ladies and gentlemen, they put sweeteners or saccharin in it. Technically speaking, it is not sugar, but it is still sweet. Avoid, if you're going to have jam, have normal jam, but have a small portion of it. Don't go for diabetic chocolate or diabetic jam. It's more expensive and it's worse for you. I tell you, please cut down on salt. The salt is the major cause of us, as I said it earlier in the webinar, of us developing high blood pressure and hypertension. And even the salt seasonings, the powdered seasonings that you see, the Texas, all the various. My grandmother, when I was growing up, beg your pardon, she used to use flour to coat the chicken and then just add a little salt to it. But now, in a lot of the places, all these packed salts and these chicken noodle and so on that you're putting in the soup, and the cock soup and so on, and the oxo and so on, and the Maggi liquid, they're just salt, and more salt. So that salt there, the table salt, it's full of additives and preservatives. The sea salt is not good for you because the oceans and the seas are polluted. go for, and it's in the supermarkets in America, as in Jamaica, as in Britain, the salt from the Himalayas, Himalayan salt. It's pink in color, and it is a natural source of salt from the Himalayas, far better for you. Even if you can't remember the Himalayas, just go into any supermarket and say, you want the salt, which is from the highest mountain in the world. They will know what you're talking about. It's pink in color, Himalayan salt. And as a matter of fact, before I move to the next one, use basil, dill, onion, garlic, pimento, all these things to flavor your dishes, your meat dishes, and cut down on the salt intake. And my daughter's husband is a chef, and he explained to us the food in restaurants, and that will apply anywhere, is deliberately salted so that you end up asking for beer or stout or soda or wine or something. Your taste buds become salty from the salt they placed on the food, and your drinks bill ends up being more than your food bill. I'm begging you to get wise to that and ask them when they come around, because they're expecting you to order these things when you start eating the food. Ask them for a jug of water instead, which you don't have to pay for. Be mindful of that. It's a ploy, it's a technique. Why the food is so salt. And we notice that because we don't use a lot of salt at home. We notice that when we dine out. Chlorella is used in the Asian community, but I'm going to come back to that on another slide. But the Asian community use that, the bitter melon or bitter gourd, to spice up their dishes. Aim for 3 meals a day. Some people aim for 5 meals instead of 3. And then there's some people, which is 5 meals, but smaller portion sizes. But some people go for intermittent fasting, whereby they don't eat anything at all till, say, the afternoon or so on. I don't do that. I make sure I have something in this. It's up to you and what your body can take. But even if you're intermittent fasting, you have to remain hydrated. So you must have water. Even if you're intermittent fasting, you must drink water to keep your system. The body depends on water. So even those who are intermittent fasting, I say, you should aim, they say, for 2 liters of water per day. It's hard to do that, but try and drink as much water so that when you flush out the aim of the water is to flush the kidneys. That's what the kidneys are there for, to flush out the toxins, the poisons, the impurities out of your body. And a lot of older people tend not to drink enough water, which is why they become dehydrated instead of hydrated. Okay? And then when your urine, when you drink enough water, your urine should be a lovely, lovely golden clear crystal color. If it's smelly and it's dark in color, that means you're becoming hydrated or something's wrong with your system. Go for oily fish. The more oily fish you have, the better. Whether it be mackerel, sardine, you name all the oily fish out there. Tuna, mackerel, sardine, tuna, sprat, herring. The more oily fish you have, the better, because doctors have explained to me, oily fish wards off Alzheimer's, senility, being senile, or dementia, and is also good for rheumatoid arthritis. But Tony Kelly did not say go down to the fish and chip shop and have oily fish every week. That's not the oily fish I'm talking about. Now, within that, you will see a lemon. And I'll tell you very quickly, for the last 16, 17 years, every single day before I eat anything or drink anything, I squeeze a lemon, a full lemon, in warm water and drink that. And the doctor said to me, that's the best thing to start the stomach going. One's acidic and one's alkaline, the two combined in warm water, the lemon and the warm water is the best thing to wake up the stomach. And if you can start doing that, I'll encourage you to do that. Avoid alcohol. No, diabetes people can have alcohol, but just like with everybody else, you have alcohol-free days, because remember, alcohol is still putting on calories, whether it be beer, lager, stout, vodka, rum, gin, you are still piling on calories by drinking. So you have to have alcohol-free days, and you have to spread it out over the week, and you also never drink alcohol on an empty stomach. My father used to say when he was alive, food is the staff of life because he loved his rum. But rum is life itself. And I always say that. But you be mindful about your alcohol consumption. You all should know we shouldn't be smoking. If you do, I beg you, try and give it up. And then the last slide, if I stop sharing that one, the last slide, and remind me what I need to do now is bring it up first of all. Whoops. Is this the one? Cultural myths, yeah. So I brought it.
Look, and then share it now. Share.
So if I go into where you are, hang on. Oops, sorry. Wait 1 second. I should be getting better at this, shouldn't I? No, why am I not? No. So I brought it up onto the screen, and then I should go across and see.
Go back into StreamYard and hit share.
StreamYard. Is that StreamYard? I'm in StreamYard now, yes. And hit share. Share screen. Share screen. And up there should be. So why is it not showing up here? It's not showing, is it? Hang on, going to Windows. Yes, it's in PowerPoint slide, cultural myths. That's any questions? No. So why is it not in here? Hang on.
You're there.
And is it the right one though?
Is it saying Tony Kelly with the fruits?
Hang on, wait a minute. Let me see. What? Food and diabetes quiz. I've done that already, haven't I? No, it's not that one. Let me close it.
Don't stop sharing. Don't stop sharing. When you bring it up back again, don't stop sharing. You could pull it from the folder that's at the bottom. But now you have to open it back up again.
So share screen, hang on.
Yes.
Right. So go to so at the moment I have share, cancel, share system audio. At the bottom here, cultural myths. Any question? I must have closed it. No, here it is, cultural myths. So,
okay. So open it up.
What do I do now again? Sorry?
Open it up.
Open it up. So it's opened on the screen, yes.
Okay, and then go back to StreamYard and go share.
Go back to StreamYard. Right, so I'm in StreamYard. Yes, it's there now, yes.
Okay, so share.
Hang on, share. I think it's
there you go. It's there.
It's there.
Yes.
Oh, it's not showing on mine. So hang on. So what do I do? How do I bring it up?
Which one are you trying to bring up?
I'm trying to bring up cultural myths.
Okay, click on the folder at the bottom. Let me see.
Folder at the bottom.
Your folder that has all the slides.
Oh, it's not in there anymore, is it? Oh dear. Hang on. No. Now something went wrong.
Well, maybe you'll have to wing it right here.
Huh?
Maybe you'll have to wing it right here.
Wing it mean stopping it here, you mean?
No, just
cultural myths. I'm by cultural myths.
You have it now. It's there. It's
there. Okay. All right. So if I but then I go to the right and it goes. Hang on. So I have it's on my screen fully at the moment.
Okay, good. All right.
So after that now go to
just go naturally like you did the other slides. You lost it again. Pull it back up. There you go. It's up.
So if I press F5, it should. So
were you using the arrows? Is that it?
Is that it? Yeah. Is it coming?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Bear with me for 1 second. 1 second, please. Hang on. Right. So these are the cultural myths. Just quickly go through these and then any questions at the end. In some communities, this was the Karela one, the Asian community, they have bitter melon or bitter gourd, which they use in their meat dishes. Now, let me just explain to you that some people are on medication, whether it be metformin, the tablet, or insulin, and the doctor explained to them, some Asian people swear by bitter melon or bitter gourd, Karela, that it's going to cure the diabetes. And we have to try and explain to them, no, it doesn't, because in the first place, if it was curing it, you wouldn't be getting it in the first place. So why then, they put the medication aside, some Asian people, and they have this cultural myth that this will cure them. In some Asian people, it is similar to, some people have to take blood thinning tablets and then they can't have grapefruit or grapefruit juice. That too applies for some people on Asian people who have to take diabetes tablets. Then they also have to be mindful about Karela because it counteracts it. In the African Caribbean, our community, we swear by back in the day, yes, and it's still important, herbal remedies like aloe vera or what we could call tuna, and then there's another one called Cinco Bible. We use those. There's no harm in using them. Don't get us wrong here, because that's what we know from back in the Caribbean and Africa and so on. But we need to be mindful. If you're on medication, then yes, you need to make sure that you do take your medication. Diabetes is a touch of sugar. We've all established throughout this interview, this webinar, it is more than a touch of sugar. There are people out there who still hold to that cultural myth, that belief that, oh, it's sugar. Me have sugar. Granny have sugar. It's a mild thing. And you'll notice there the brown sugar and the white sugar. You shouldn't be using white sugar. You shouldn't be using white flour. You shouldn't be using white bread. For instance, I love hard-dough bread. But it's only 3 times a year hard-dough bread come into this house. Easter, Christmas, and probably for the independence. You need to remember all carbohydrates we eat, which is starchy food, yam, bread, rice, patty, cocoa bread, all carbohydrates, that we eat break down into our body into glucose or sugar. So when I see people out there say, Tony, give up the bun and the ice cream and the sweet cake and the Christmas cake and the donuts and so on, but I still eat all of these things. Please remember all carbohydrate, which is why you need to go for the greens, the vegetables, the lettuce, the kale, the callaloo, the pop chow, the spinach, all those sorts of things, the tomato, the red cabbage, the red onions, that sort of thing, as opposed to the constant whole heap of rice, and bread, and so on. We need to be mindful of that. And then go for wholemeal bread and also things which are sort of wholemeal products, as opposed, and granary bread, the bread with the sesame seeds and the grains on it and the brown bread and so on, as opposed to white bread. That's a treat now and again, as far as I'm concerned, okay? Big is beautiful. I'll just quickly say, in some communities, I won't name them, you will know some of them, you will see the man. He's as skinny as a rake, or what we in Jamaica, I have to keep going back to Jamaica, that's where me brought up, mager as ever, and walking next to him is his duchess, his queen, or his princess, and he feels so proud of himself because he's conquered. They deliberately, in some communities, fatten their women folk. So they have the big breasts and the big bottom and the overall big look. Cut it out is what I have to say to them. And I go to some communities and they tell me, I have to say, but that is our culture. I said, it can be a culture, but it is also a recipe for disaster. Diabetes will come that person's way. Diabetes is an old person's condition. There are still people who hold on to that myth that is only people who are old can get diabetes. You guys in America will know that these youngsters walking around, my father would have said they're fat like mudfish. I keep it real. In the 13, 14, 15, 16, developing diabetes at that age because they're way too fat, on the Kentucky and on the McDonald's and the Wendy's and the Burger King and the pizza and the nuggets and so on and the milkshakes. So diabetes is no longer an old person's condition. A big belly is a sign of a happy marriage. Now people laugh when they see that. And then I said, that man is about to have triplets. His waist is way too big. And I'll just remind you, women should aim for, from the belly button, 31.5 inches, ideal. White men and African Caribbean men are allowed 37 inches, but Asian men is 35 inches. That's ideal. So if your waist size is 40, try and bring it down from 40 to about 36 to allow the pancreas to do what it should be doing naturally. In some communities, I won't mention them, but you might know some of them. If my larder not packed or my kitchen not packed with all of these rich foods, the donut and the cream cakes and the this and the that and so on, it shows how rich and how wealthy I am. I go to events. I was in Canada 3 years ago doing an event, and by the time I finished doing the event, they brought out the spread. If you saw the whole heap of cream cakes, and I said, excuse me, are you expecting me to eat that? I'm afraid not. No. At least give people the option. Let's say you're having a function or so on. Have the fresh fruits there, the vegetables alongside the cream cakes and the donuts. So people have a choice. Notice the one dega strawberry in that instead of it being, I would rather you had the satsumas, the naseberries, the oranges, the mangoes, the papaya, etc., and the grapes in your larder than all of that. That's a recipe for disaster. It's God's will. We're Christians. Oh, it's in the Bible. The Bible said we're going to get it, so we just have to accept it. Or the Holy Quran. The Muslims said the Holy Quran, their holy book says it's going to happen, so we just accept it. No. That's another cultural myth which we have to dispel. Diabetes is a mild condition. I've clearly shown you within what I spoke to this evening on that it is more than a mild condition. It is, when they say it's no big deal, it is a very, very big deal. If you have diabetes, you won't be able to find a husband. That's a myth that's out there. My stepmother in Canada, God bless her, she's died now, but she has type 1. She had type 1. It was harder for her to conceive, but eventually she did have her daughter, that is my half-sister, who lives in Canada, and she has 2 children and grandchildren as well. Last slide, if you have decided to fast during the month of Ramadan, this is the Islams, I have to go to the Muslim communities, and if you prick your finger to test your blood glucose, you've broken the fast. Absolute rubbish, absolute nonsense. And I have to then correct these people who hold firmly to that belief. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
All right. Okay. We are so grateful tonight to have had this wonderful, enlightening, educational presentation regarding diabetes, which is prevalent in our community. Thank you, Mr. Tony Kelly, all the way in England, Birmingham. It is now 5 hours later than what we have here as our time. So we consider it a sacrifice, and we appreciate you coming on to share with us. I have taken the notes.
Are there any questions here, Paulette? Anybody has any burning question they want to anything in the chat?
There were some questions, but people said it's a wonderful presentation, great presentation. One of the questions they had was about portion size. Well, you talked about portion size, how important it is. So from the comments, very excellent. I'm learning a lot here, taking their notes, and you've made great points. So people sat and they enjoyed.
Thank you. And it's thanks to you, Paulette, because you heard me on the radio and decided I've got to get hold of this man.
Yes,
if it wasn't for you, this wouldn't have happened. And you have to be thanked.
And it's because of how it is plaguing our population, especially us in the Black community. So
yes, because I do keep it very real. People said to me all the time, Tony, you're not talking like the doctors with the hot potato in their mouth. You're talking in a language that the people will understand, and I try to do that. If I'm with a white group, Paulette and Nicole and the rest of you, I have to do it somewhat because they're not gonna understand the patois anyway.
Exactly. So you brought it down to us so we can understand it clearly.
Exactly.
So, oh, there was one quick question. Why is it important to take vitamin B12? You elaborated well on that.
I did, and Floradix is a thing to go for all the Metatone. I'm sure they must be available in the States there.
We must have equivalents here in the United States at the health food store.
The health food store will have it, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So very informative, very excellent, and learning a lot. People have gathered a lot. I have gathered a lot. I know I need to go on Stubless or park further away from the supermarket to do a little more walking so I can encourage
movement.
Active
Movement, yes.
Movement. So we have learned a lot. And I just, on behalf of our pastor and our pastors and the women's ministry department, we are grateful to you to take the time out to expound upon the importance of our diet in managing diabetes. It doesn't have to be medicated, but until we get there, please be advised to follow your doctor's direction until we can get to the point where we are dependent on the diet to help us to manage our diabetes and the thing that is plaguing our community. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. We appreciate and I'm looking forward to more collaboration later on. God bless.
Take care, everybody. Have a good evening. I'm off to bed now.
All right. Enjoy your sleep. Thank you so much.
All right.
And those of us here, we're going to close out with a brief prayer and ask that you just stay with us 1 minute more.
Yes,
Father, we thank you for tonight. We thank you for being with us, oh God, from the start until the end. Yes, God, we encountered some difficulties, but God, it was important information that was imparted unto us, Lord. I pray you help us to take it as people of God to help us live better lives. We thank you, God, for those who stayed on, those who are still in tune. Mighty God, we thank you for being with us. And I pray that you stay with us now as we go forth. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. God bless you and thank you, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We'll talk again soon, Paulette.
Definitely.
Right? Okay, then. Take care.